Hey guys, I wanted to show you the quick and dirty way to make a 6x6 out of an SCX24. You have to forgive me if you hear me breathing, I have a cold, so bear with me, but at least you're going to get some good info for free. Here's what we got to do. So let's start out with, what are you going to need to make this happen? Let's pop the hood and just take a gander here real quick. So, clearly, we're going to need an extra frame. I have one of these around because I've been doing this a little bit longer than everybody else, it seems. And I've got way more stuff than you guys do piled away. So, we need a frame. How you mount it to the chassis. Let's talk about that, because that's one of the biggest things on people's minds. In fact, it was almost made for it. If you look carefully, as I zoom in, hope to focus on my Galaxy S9. Okay. I put in 3 spots on either side, 3 screws. Just stock screws. I've been collecting them whenever I get parts in. Well, 2 of them line up like they were made for it. This thing wanted to be a 6x6. The third one, you don't need, but I wanted it just to make it a little more robust, give it a little strength, what have you. You don't have to. If you got a drill and you got a drill bit that's the right size, we'll get into that in a minute. You can see the frame that I went with. This phone, I swear, is a little bit of a stair-step design. I did that because I have these shocks that I like to use. They're stock shocks, and we'll get there in a minute, but like I said, let's focus on the frame itself. If you have stock shocks, unmodified stock shocks, and that's what you want to use, go for it. All you have to do is simply flip the frame instead of like this to like this. Just take all your little bits and bobs off. Everything mounts upside down if you want it to be. Just reverse it a little bit. And don't forget, you have to flip your skid, because this method of doing so does not use the pass-through worm screw from one axle to another. This actually utilizes an entirely separate motor, transmission, drive shaft. Why do it that way? It's easy. Not as cheap, not as fun, but it works great. This is proof. Now, let's assume you get your frame chopped. You can see I just quick and dirty cut mine with some cutters here. Maybe. Come on, Samsung. Fair enough. Yeah, not a pretty sight, but it's on there. It's painted black. It's not going to rust. Woohoo. It's on there. Let's assume you have a frame sticking out. You've got no body on. Your chassis mount for the hinge is back here. That's cool. What do you do next? Well, you need a rear axle. Go ahead, hop on eBay, hop on Horizon. Keep your fingers crossed you find something in stock. But that's not where the fun stops. Good Lord, this phone is not great at focusing. I'm not really watching it either. So, like I said, got a cold, got to breathe through the mouth. You got your frame mounted. You've got your axle. What's the next step? Well, we want to connect the axle to the truck. Forego the transmission, forego the motor, no drive shaft. Let's get some links. The angle of mine, you have to play with it. Go ahead and order a link set. They're cheap. They're like $10 plus shipping. Make sure you just get a bunch of them. I ended up using a weird angle on mine because I needed to. Since my frame is up so high, that makes my motor inherently higher than my other motor, which changes the angle, and getting the right flow from the engine to the rear was difficult. I had to cock the angle of the differential back, use a weird setup drive shaft that I've never really used before, but hey, it works. It doesn't pop out. Nothing's binding. I'm happy with it. The drivetrain's happy with it, more importantly. You do you until you find what's good for you. There's no manual to this. There's no how to make a 6x6 for dummies. You do you. So, at that point, you have to contend with how do you want your shock set up? Because now we need suspension. With me, I went and made my own shocks. You guys may have heard people using something called the servo screw mod. Well, what they're talking about is this is a, junk, but pseudo 1/10 scale servo that I've had laying around from an old RTR. I think it was, this came off the temper. It's absolute hot garbage. Don't use it. It's waterproof. Woohoo. It's still junk. So, but there's screws that go through the case. You see I have 4 screws here, and their job is to hold and clamp the case together. I'm never going to use this thing. I didn't mind butchering it. You really want to do this with a dead servo. For example, I have hot racing to show the stock size. This is from an RGT, which you're going to find on the V2, which is the small Defender, comes in gray and red. You're going to find it on a few other things that, I don't know, people don't mess with them anymore, but the Enduro's got them. And this is one that's been modified by me. This is using one of those screws as the shock shaft. All you have to do is take your shock apart, feed the shaft through. If it rubs, if it binds up on the the actual reservoir, then go ahead and just take you a small drill bit or, a file if you have something that small, and widen the hole until it clears and runs smoothly. No big deal. You can see I've done that to mine. It goes in and out as it should. No big deal. Throw a little grease in there if you want, just to kind of grease the sidewalls. You may have to grind down the actual head of the screw so it clears the inside of the reservoir. It's great. It's strong. This is a pen spring. You can pull them out of any junk pen, ballpoint pen you got laying around. You're done. If you don't want to do that, simply just utilize your stock shocks. You can see I mounted mine to the frame. Oh, everyone's doing that these days. Well, how's it done? Because no one's explained how you do it. Well, I use these. These are the mounts for, this looks like a body post mount for one of the trucks. I can't remember which one utilizes those. Not the Jeep, not the C10, so it's got to be the other two or whatever. And that, if you put the barrage motor on, you've eventually had to clip that off your battery tray. No big deal. Battery tray. Whatever, yeah, battery tray. And all you have to do is just cut the little ears off. As you see there, and there. Those two on the end. 1, 2, and that little guy there. And that's all you have to do. You just have to feed your shocks, screw, take your drill bit. I can't remember the size. Just run a screw hole or run a hole through the frame. Cut the little ear off. Screw it right into it on the back side of the frame, and you're done. I've been doing that way for years. It's running great. Good God, the focus. So that's where you do it. That's where you do it. But if you notice, motor faces forward, motor faces backwards down there. That means this one's going to run in reverse every time you hit it to go forward. All you have to do is make sure that red to black and black to red, and then you splice it together. This one's going to be turning the right way, so whatever red comes off of this one, hook it into your hot wire. Whatever negative's coming off of this one, make sure it's touching the red on this one, but negative, making sure you touch the negative on your ESC. You're done. All you have to do is you just have to solder it, cut it, and yeah, you're done. It's pretty simple. If you guys haven't soldered, if you're young, if you've never done it before, you're not confident in it, ask for help. Just remember, this one's already turning forward. You hit the gas, you want to go forward, boom, truck goes forward. If you don't do it right, this one will go